And here we are.
All
So,
right.
today's guest is one of the world's leading voices in systems thinking, complexity, ecology, and relational intelligence. It's truly an honor to welcome Nora Bateson. Nora is an award winning filmmaker, author, artist, international lecturer, and research designer. She's the founder and president of the International Bateson Institute, currently serves as president of the International Federation of Systems Research, and is the creator of Warm Data and Warm Data Labs, a groundbreaking approach that helps us understand the living relationships between people, cultures, ecosystems, and institutions by recognizing the context that is indispensable to understanding human experience. She is also the daughter of the legendary anthropologist, cyberneticist, philosopher, and systems thinker Gregory Bateson, whose work has transformed psychology, family systems, ecology, communication theory, and our understanding of what he famously called the pattern which connects. Nora has not only carried forward her father's extraordinary legacy, but has expanded it in remarkable ways, helping us to see that life's deepest wisdom emerges not from isolated parts, but from the relationships between them. Among her many contributions are the concepts of somathesy, meaning mutual learning through interaction, and aphanipoesis, describing the countless unseen relational processes through which life continually creates itself. These ideas have become foundational for many people working in psychology, education, healthcare, ecology, leadership, and systems thinking. Nora is the author of the acclaimed books Small Arcs of Larger Circles and Combining, and she is now preparing to launch her newest book, Belly, described as a cookbook with almost no recipes. Belly is a deeply original exploration of food, family, ecology, grief, healing, politics, embodiment, and everyday life. Through stories, essays, poetry, artwork, and reflections, Nora invites us to see that every meal, every relationship, and every ordinary moment is woven into a much larger living ecology. Rather than offering formulas or easy answers, Belly encourages us to slow down, notice the relationships that nourish us, and ask not only what we are feeding, but whom we are feeding and how we might learn to nourish one another differently. As many of you know, these themes resonate deeply with what we explore here on Conversations with Dr. Wes: psychology, consciousness, family systems, spirituality, ecology, healing, and our shared search for a more relational way of being in the world. Nora, without further ado, it's an honor to have you on Conversations with Dr. Wes.
It's so great to be here, Wes. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'd love to dive in. I had the opportunity to meet you briefly in person when I came out to London, all the way from the States, and came to one of your warm data labs,
Mm.
which was nothing short of amazing and transformational. And I just would love for you to kind of tell some of the listeners a little bit about your journey, and bring us kind of up to date with how you see your work currently and everything that you're doing in the world.
All right.
That was a big
That's
one.
that was a big one. Um, but I think it's a good starting place. There's a lot happening and I think I'm actually just really at nearly 60 years old, beginning to feel into what I'm holding. And the trickery of that has been that I'm 3 generations at least into holding this material. So my father is more well known, I think, for his work in systemic thinking, and certainly the beginning of cybernetics, systemic therapies, information science, and so on. But his father was also a scientist at the turn of the century who was looking at how do organisms change each other, which is already a revolutionary twist on the question of how do systems change? How do I change? How do you change? And locating that change in the individual organism is, of course, a product of the industrial era, where my grandfather was asking what is happening in the relationships between organisms, whether they're human beings or, insects or any kind of organisms, that allows them to change, that makes a context in which they must shape each other. And so this is kind of running through my being. And I did try to rebel and do something else with my life. I failed at that. But being a pretty good little punk rocker in the 80s, I felt like rebellion was necessary. But how do you rebel when you're already 2 or 3 generations into a very serious cultural rebellion? And then eventually my own rebellion merged with the family rebellion, and I was back where I started.
Mm.
So it goes. But in this, if you want to call it the West or the North, we don't really see that much intergenerational work, right? If you go to other cultures, Japan or South America or the African continent or China, you're going to see families who have been working on the same, let's call it an artisanal craft.
Mm.
All right. And I'm going to put into that notion of artisanal craft a body of ideas. So it's not just what you do with your hands, but also the art of being alive. Okay. It is a craft.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and how that's held for a very long time. And so my father was, of course, holding his work in relation to his father. And I don't want to slight the women who were around them, because there were powerhouse women. My father was married to Margaret Mead, and certainly she was a force to be reckoned with. And my grandfather was married to a woman named Beatrice, and he surrounded himself with women who were brilliant and strident. And so there's always been a lot of women around this as well. So if I'm naming the boys, let's just keep it clear here. So living in relation to the previous generation is a tricky thing. Coming back to this bit about where does it live? Does it live in the individual? Right? Who's doing this work? Am I doing this work? Do I need recognition? Is it my work?
Mm.
And the difficulty of doing something that in which I feel, and I'm, like I said, I'm beginning to feel comfortable with it, that I am holding something between 2 generations. And that's my work, is to do that with integrity and creativity and love and ferocity and humor and whatever is needed in terms of a voice of expression. for the context that I am in, the era that I am holding it for, where my father had to do it in his era, and his dad did it in his era, and my kids will do it in their era. And it will feel different, walk different, talk different. But deep down, the integrity, the attention to the work is what is actually passed between the generations. Now, if you go looking for product, what did each generation make? Okay, that's fine, you'll find it. But I think this is really at the heart, Wes, of the problem right now. If everyone's looking for product, we're in deep trouble, because AI can make the product.
Yes.
But it cannot hold the integrity of the attention that is necessary in the work itself.
Absolutely.
And so this is, I'm hoping that was a clear description of this intergenerational piece, which is really central to Belly. So in Belly, I'm really looking at, sort of, on the one hand, this question of what is agency? What does it mean to do something? I think there's quite a few of us right now who are feeling urgency to do something. And then the puzzle, though, is what? Because you run out and you do something and you realize, oh no, the thing I did is actually compounding the situation I was hoping to change. So where does this idea come from that I will make change? What is this idea of doing a thing? And how can we begin to look at this across generations, through culture, through language, through food, through the nutritional and metabolism needs of our bodies together, seasons, appetites, so that we can start to see that you could reach for an apple, eat that apple, and when does that apple stop being an apple and start being part of me, that is the energy that I have to have a conversation with you?
Mm.
And where does that conversation lead to? And how does that conversation change in some way other conversations? And when did that apple become an apple? Right? Because it came from the tree, and there was the bees, and there was the soil, and there was this. So there's this point in time that you can say, and that was the moment I bit the apple. And I did a thing, I bit an apple. But that thing that I did is existing in a swirl of causalities that move backward and forward through time. And as the urgency to make change gets hotter, I think it's really important to notice the movement of how life does things, which is really not the same as how industrial mechanistic thinking does things.
Yes. Nora, oh, so many thoughts, but I wanted to back up and speak about your grandfather for a second, and what you just so poignantly and beautifully kind of laid out is this intergenerational artisanal craftsmanship, or working with ideas and the flow and the connectivity and the spaces in between. But if I'm correct, William Bateson, your grandfather, is the one that coined the term genetics.
Yeah.
And that alone, but again, if we're looking at product and these kind of soul creations, but they were your grandfather and your father were asking questions, epistemological deep dives into understanding relationship. And how can you even begin to do that without first recognizing the relationships in your own life? And you bring up the women and the family systems and systems in general. And then my favorite, I have so many favorite quotes of yours, your father's, but Gregory's quote that I use often with my clients and everyone in my life is the major problems in the world lie in the difference between how nature works and how man thinks.
Mhm.
And life, this life that we exist in and is in the present and we experience, and the ontological fabric that we exist and play within, I almost feel like it's been dumbed down with so much conditioning in how we compartmentalize it and how we see it, and it's made us forget the interconnectivity of all things. So you mentioned the apple in ingesting our bioenergetic field, how we are. And I don't know if you ever saw a movie called I Heart Huckabees.
Yeah, yeah.
I adore it. It's one of my favorites, and I go back to it all the time. But there's a moment where Dustin Hoffman and Lily Tomlin, they're existential detectives, they're talking, and he's talking to Mark Wahlberg, and Mark Wahlberg's like, well, nothing's connected and nothing makes sense and it's all nihilistic and it's BS. And he goes, no, 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 pay attention. If you look in the air right now, there's tiny little particles that are connected to other tiny particles. And he goes, yeah, but there's tiny little cracks in between the particles where they're not connected. And he's like, but if you look closer, there's even more tiny particles, and you can't tell where your nose starts and my nose begins because it's all connected in this energetic field. And then Jason Schwartzman jumps in and he's like, yeah, but you can't see any of this particle stuff anyways. And he goes, Lily Tomlin goes, you live with things you can't see all the time. You can't see radio waves. You can't see particles in the air. They're energetic. They're there. And your concept of the transcontextual is so pivotal and important to understanding that life essence that we experience. And for anybody that, to kind of break it down more simplistically, we have this idea of multidisciplinary, which looks at things as separate coming together to communicate. Transcontextual blows that out of the water and goes, look, it could never be separate to begin with. Just like your father so poignantly says, you go into the university system and it says we have anthropology, we have psychology, we have sociology, we have chemistry, as if they are separate compartmentalized quiz bits that we can draw lines around, when the reality is existence and life operates entirely differently, and they are woven in this beautiful tapestry, and we're just trying to understand it and frame it. And I remember in your documentary that was so beautiful, An Ecology of Mind, the film you made on your father, at the beginning as a little girl, it's showing pictures of you and him, and you're talking about, you were like, my father was always learning from everything around him. And that beginner's mind, that how to keep the childlike wonder that we are all born with and impregnate our lives with that continually. I think it becomes harder for people as they get older, and they do want to, how do we reignite that in a way, in a world where we can often feel like we have no advocacy? And I do believe it starts with that consciousness framework and starting to see the interconnected dimensions and the intergenerational pieces. I think about this podcast and I can think about it like a product, and all of a sudden I'm like, how many views is it going to get, and where can I get, and what does Dr. West, the ego, do? And then I go to my daughters and I'm like, you know what? And I'll cry if I think about this, but I'm like, they'll watch it and they'll see what I was doing in my life, even when I'm not here, and how I was excited and talking to people and making connections and being inquisitive. And can I pass that on to them as they move through their life to kind of find meaning and purpose? And so, yeah,
I think, you just hit on the thing, which is that all of the change, all of the information, all of the practice of this work is not saved for some sort of committee meeting with Post-its and graphs. It's not about the conferences. It's about making a cup of tea, right? It's right there in how you fix breakfast. It's in the minutia of the day that the deepest epistemological troubles reside, and the most possibility resides. So both of those things, in the moment of making a cup of tea, you are actually engaging in hundreds of years of colonialism and an entire economic system, in a whole culture of courtesies and gestures of hospitality. You're entering into a relationship with fire and water and earth and steam and healing and ceremony. And you're just making a cup of tea. Right? This is like not rewriting the policy of the world. And you know what? It actually is.
Yeah.
And so that's the attention I really want to bring, is to the minutia, to the everyday impulses and appetites. So, the lioness in the savannah, when she's hungry and she sees an antelope and she chases the antelope, there is an appetite there that is already written into multiple ecological processes. Okay, the lioness is not thinking, well, it would be good if I ate that antelope so we keep the population of antelopes low enough so that the grass has a chance to actually root, so that it can hold the moisture for next year, so that we have a savanna, so that there could be a lioness. Okay, she's not thinking that, but the appetite itself is not only relevant in the first order, in the first direct place of, I want to eat the antelope, right? That urge, that craving, craves her into the entire ecology. But so many of our cravings are actually doing the opposite, where the desire, the craving, the longing, of our appetite is a lust for life that is honestly, it's kind of vampiric. It's a little bit like we're trying to get eternal life by taking life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no wonder that we have this sort of sickness of hunting for immortality and technology, and in that is a huge sacrifice of being part of something eternal, right? It's not the same thing. And thanks anyway. I'll take dying and composting and being part of eternal life over some sort of twisted version of immortality any day of the week.
Amen.
Yeah. So this appetite it's in everything. It's in how we love each other. It's in the way that the miracle of how a baby can grow in my womb. It's in the miracle of some of the fantastic research that's happening right now around breast milk, and the way that breast milk actually changes depending on the baby. The chemical and nutritional and certainly immunological content of the milk changes depending on the baby. So if a baby is sick, the saliva enters into the hole in the breast where the milk comes in, and it changes the immune processes that come through the milk. I mean, this is Where's the edge of the milk? Where's the edge of the mother? Where's the edge of the immune system? Right? So we're just beginning to enter a world of science and inquiry that's reaching outside of a particular isolated concept, right? So, and into something that's more, the word that I'm using in belly is among. It's among, which I like, because even when we think about the word interconnected, it's easy to think of nodes that are sort of attached with something. But when you're looking at it through the notion of among or amonging, there's no, we are among life, right? Where is Dr. West? Like, are you your culture? Are you your microbiome? Are you your children, your parents, your community, where actually are you?
Yeah.
And you are among all of those. And so the idea that you should take care of number one is a violence to that amonging.
A severing.
A severing, an illusion of being isolated. And I think what we're seeing right now is that people are hurting because of that isolation. There's so much harm, and definitely technology and the various algorithms and AI and all of this is just making it worse.
Yeah.
So the warm data work and the warm data labs are a process that allows for an analog amonging to take place through storytelling and personal experience. Isn't that interesting that we've come to a point in human history where personal experience is not the first thing we draw from? And there is a tonality that has kind of usurped all of what we think of as credible. And that tonality is rejecting personal experience.
Yeah.
And yet this is what we do. We learn together. When I tell you a story, you learn from my story because it connects to your story, and your stories have things that change my stories. And this is what evolution is. This is what life is doing. If you look in your garden or you look in a forest, all the organisms are in a story together, and they're changing each other.
Yes.
So, yeah. So it's this one of there's a piece in Belly called Amonging that's really starting with this idea again of, I think when you were in the warm data course, we talked about where is the edge of me, right?
Yes.
And this is kind of an expansion of that instead of asking the question, how do I be a better person? The question is, who can I be when I'm with you? Who can you be when you're with me? And those questions are pushing us into a more ecological way of being together.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie. I grew up in the heart of the California self-help thing and came out the other side of it pretty disillusioned with the idea that any of that was going anywhere. It seems like if you do enough self-help, you end up a narcissist. And it isn't about the self. It was never about the self. Unless you go into the deep, deep self, which becomes everything.
Yes.
Right.
And the interconnectedness.
Right.
Absolutely.
Then you're among again.
Yeah.
But most of the time it doesn't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I met some of the biggest assholes I've ever met, spent most of their days meditating, and it didn't help.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bros out there doing a bunch of ayahuasca. It's not helping.
Well, and it's this idea of ego and spirit.
Yeah.
And I went and, I had a really rough patch that I hit. I was running this center for 5.5 years, and it was beautiful, and we were doing community and family work, but it gassed me out. I completely blew a gasket and hit a place of burnout, and psychologically, spiritually, financially. But it was the greatest gift from spirit and the universe for me to hit that place. But I remember I went and was doing kind of my own healing, but I found a monk, and he ran a Shaolin temple out here in Atlanta, and he was in his 80s. And I
Mhm.
went and met with him and learned some breath work. But when I came in, Nora, he immediately looked through all of my he didn't look at my tattoos, he didn't look at my profession, he didn't look at my titles, my form. He immediately went to consciousness and connection and spirit and the divine and presence, and said, here we are, sit,
Mhm.
breathe,
Mhm.
I'll teach you consciousness. And it was this amonging. It
Yeah.
was like I wasn't separate. We were part of the same ether and connectivity. And it was kind of going into that realm. And what you mentioned with, I work with so many youth and families, and the false illusion of disconnection, because we're not disconnected. We're always connected, my belief. Um, but we start to believe that we are disconnected. And I love what you said about this eternal coalescing and growth. And you use a term called mental monocropping,
Yeah.
which I absolutely adore. And you write about it in small arcs. And, this idea that in farming and agriculture, they kind of make these separate lines and will not cross pollinate. But we do that all the time with our ideas and with
Mhm.
our emotions. And we're like, I'm over here, you're over here. And I believe it's ego. And so, Eckhart Tolle speaks about it beautifully, kind of helping you slowly undo your ego identity so that you can recognize the interrelational play that is at hand all the time. It is not ever I and you. It's Martin Buber's work, I and thou. It is us, it is we. And when two people connect deeply and share their stories, that connection, I feel like, is the electricity of God. It
Mhm.
is it is our recognition. And like you, but to bring it back to what you said, it's like more ego work, more I'm going to heal myself. If I can become the healthiest version of myself, if I can do all of my own work, this perpetuates this ego and this separateness. But if we can start to recognize whatever energy I give, I receive.
Yeah.
And there's a reciprocal boomerang type relationship where, and I love to look at it like kind of like the egg theory, Andy Weir's theory. And he says, you are everyone else.
Mhm.
We,
Mhm.
you, that's you living a different life. And the more you recognize that connectivity, how you engage with others is constantly informing who you become and who you are in those moments and how we becoming.
And the thing is that this is not something that you do at a spiritual retreat. This is every day, all day.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I saw growing up at Esalen was that there were people who, oh man, they talked a talk. But the second the adults were out of the room, they treated the children like crap.
Mm,
That's all you need to know. If they
absolutely.
couldn't see that the kids were souls entering this life journey to carry what everything that they were supposed to be learning and teaching and being into the next generations, what the hell were they doing?
Yeah.
Right? And so this is where I think by contrast, there were other teachers who were at Esalen and in other of these, kind of workshop places where people do these things, who they were legit. They were the real deal. And they would actually walk past the grown-ups in the room who had notoriety. They weren't interested in networking, and just sit down with the kids and
Yeah.
learn from them, listen to them, be with them, connect with them, resonate with them, play with them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's so, for me, that was sort of like the litmus test of who's full of shit and who is.
Yeah.
And, to be honest, 90% of them were just ego tripping.
Yeah.
So this comes back to this intergenerational piece. And it's not easy. This is not easy to do because, nobody has an easy family. Nobody.
Yeah.
And with all the work of people running around talking about changing the future and what are we going to do for the future and envisioning the future and imagining the future and futuring the future and blah, blah, blah. What's possible in the future is what's possible in the intergenerational relationships.
Yes.
Right? That's what's possible. And so instead of running around and creating all these, linear graphs of utopias, go home and be with the next gen. Listen to them, help them find their way through, which is not being a dictator and telling them with your sagely advice what they should do, but learning with them, because honestly, there's no generation that knows how to walk the fire we're walking in. Nobody knows. So we have to learn together. This is a mutual learning. And yet all of us are carrying ghosts, the ghosts of industrialism, the ghosts of racism, the ghosts of misogyny, the ghosts of materialism, the ghosts of greed, of addiction, of loss, of mechanistic thinking. You want to get out, but half of this business of being, caught in seeing individuals is that it's a ghost. It's running through our blood.
Yeah.
We've embodied the ghost of mechanistic thinking, mechanistic perception. And if you want to test it, here's what you can do. It's you just start on a project with no end plan, no goals, and watch people flip out.
Yeah. Yes.
And they'll flip out because the comfort of going, this is where I'm going, is part of that linear process.
Yeah. Yes.
And without that linearity, there's like, well, where am I going? Am I lost?
Right. What are you doing? Well, why are you doing that? Well, what's the purpose of it? And what are you doing it for? And
What am I
people
getting out
can't.
of it?
Yeah. It reminds me, I want to say just a couple of things. It reminds me of the Buddhist sand mandalas. That they will make these intricate sand mandalas and work on them for weeks. And we, as these Westerners, will kind of get to this place where we're like, okay, now you're going to frame it and save it and take pictures of it. And no, as soon as they get done with it, they take these paintbrushes and brush it away because they recognize the impermanence of everything. And the reason that they're doing it is not to accomplish anything. It's to bring more presence, more flow. And if I may, Nora, I want to jump back just for a second to let people know, because I know we're talking about belly, but you have another work called Combining that I keep on my little glass table in my therapy office. And when family comes up, I read a couple excerpts from the beautiful poem you wrote called Family. And if I could, can I just read a little bit for, so profound, but you say, family is the blood tie and the non-blood tie, bound and unbound, and always returning to the tension between coming and going, caring and abandoning, living and dying. Family is a time boat that spins in a whirlpool of present, future, and past. Ancestors sing and spit. Unborn generations write their inspirational notes in treasures and traumas they will inherit. The days pass, and it is family that is the soup of it. Family is sour, savory, and nourishing, while it is also impoverishing. Family is all of it. It is the close ones we love to care for and the dangerous ones. Family is a raging sea, a rugged mountain, a warm fire, and an orchard of old fruit trees that have fed both grandmother and granddaughter. And you write so many. I could read the entire thing, but I don't want to go into that. But this was the first time that I read some of your words, and you said, how do we help the next generation, and how do they help us? And it is a collaborative process, and it has to be, and it cannot be hierarchical. It has to be a symmaticity. It has to be a mutual learning from one another. And we have to step into that together. We have to learn from generations and join and not see each other as separate.
So I'm going to read you something from Billy.
Awesome.
I'll read you a short piece, and then there's another piece that really, well, there's a lot that's getting really into this territory of where family and intimate relationships. Okay. And by intimate, I mean those relationships that are close, not just sexual relationships, but
Yeah.
Your relationship actually with tea is pretty intimate, or coffee, or food, or appetite, or right. These are the intimate places in your life, which I would like to be clear that I'm not that interested in looking at people like to talk about this word inner. And I don't like to talk about inner because it makes a binary with outer.
Mm.
And where intimate is actually always in that relationship. So I will focus more on intimate. But in those intimate relationships are all the possibilities and all of the ghosts. But this piece is called infinitizing. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. And it goes like this. This is not a recipe. It's a response. This is not a method. It's a metaphor. This is not a formula. It's a fermentation. This is not a stand. It's a stance. This is not a rule. It's a rhythm. This is not a perception. This is not a prescription. It's a perception. This is not a technology. It's a tone. This is not an itinerary. It's an impression. This is not a script. It's a synesthesia. This is not a curriculum. It's a characteristic. This is not a goal. It's a gesture. This is not a path. It's a presence. This is not control. It's context. This is not a frame. It's a feast. This is not a solution. It's a stratosphere. This is not a strategy. It's a story. This is not an agenda. It's an aura. This is not a meme. It's a mom. This is not a post-it. It's a posture.
Mm.
Just trying to get out of these habits, right? Where all of those initial things, the recipe, the method, the formula, the stand, the rule, the prescription, the technology, the itinerary, the script, the curriculum, the goal, the path, control, frame, solution, strategy, agenda, meme, post, the clutching need to have that form of knowing. And there's a lot of folks out there hoping that they could talk about making change in systemic ways and dealing with complexity, but still clutching all of those things and letting go. Baby, it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, it's a deep indoctrination in so many ways, in so many of us. And that's what we've been told is important. It is the, I had the pleasure of having Bio Komalafe come on the podcast, and he was talking about the difference between doors and cracks, and how doors are everything you just described. They are part of the architectural framework that never challenges its integrity, and it is not creative, and it is systemic, and it is built in. And It is planned for, but
Yeah.
the openings, the spaces in between, the Afani poesis, the coalescing of all of the living ecology that is all around us. You know, Alan Watts said, "How do we see God in a paper cup?"
Right.
And it's there, but it's almost like we have to bring ourselves out of this sleep paralysis. We've been lulled asleep, we've been hypnotized in certain ways, and we have to slowly kind of wake up into a new way of being and seeing. And like you said, a perception, a perceptual lens, almost like on a camera, an aperture that begins to open wider, and we can see the connectivity. But hard to do when everything is telling you the opposite. And again, if you really want to see people trip out, tell them, I'm just doing this thing over here and there's no end goal to it. And people are going to be like, well, pretty sure that you should monetize that or turn that into something. It's pointless. But it's the idea of, at what point do we come into being human beings and not
Mm.
just human doings, which is making us perpetually sick, because we are not able to see the alchemy of and power of making a cup of tea, and how we are these divine beings with energetic relationships, and everything we do is deeply important. But we don't see it as that.
I was in the car with my husband the other day. We were in this taxi, and the taxi driver had some music playing. And after a little while, my husband, who is a musician, turned to me and he said, "Is this music made by AI?"
Mm,
And I said, honestly, I don't know. And like, I just want to sit with this for a second, because we have come to the point where the product was of whatever it was, whether it was music or academic research or um, psychology, pop psychology, where everything was so formulaic, and there was comfort in the formula because we didn't have to be in the context that was messy. There was
mm,
comfort in the methodology. There was comfort in the recognition of the familiarity of a particular pattern of communication, to the point that we lost the ability to sensitize to what was actually in the artisanal craft.
mm,
Shit. Like, this is actually a big problem, because now you can't tell the difference, right? We've spent the last several decades conditioning to a recognition, sensitizing to a formula, whether it's in economics or the tone of the news or the way that music is, or psychology, or school, a textbook. What does a knowledgeable person sound like?
yeah.
And because it has been actually, I'm just going to say, colonized
Mm,
into these methodologies, it's hard to recognize the real thing. It's like we're in a hallway full of cardboard food, and we can't tell the
mm.
difference between the real apple and the picture of an apple.
And Nora, it's beautifully said. It's impoverishment of sorts, where, again, it was the product. It was the curation of the product that became our fixation and our addiction, and where we thought we would find sustenance and
Mm-hmm.
growth. And when you look at it, it's like the point of making music culturally,
Yeah,
historically, was to gather, to bring people into the present moment, not to create a rock star, not to create somebody that would be placed
right.
above others and be idolized and worshiped. It was a community joining. And so many young people I work with, they're like, why would I learn guitar? AI can do it. Why would I write poetry? AI can do it. And it's
Right.
like, no, You do those things because that's the Buddhist sand mandala. It puts you into flow state. It takes you into a growth within, and it is not about the outcome. It is about the flow that you gain when you are working with your hands in those artisanal crafts. So what? AI could do it. It's stealing away from you the thing that will awaken all of your senses and make you into the craftsman.
And bring you among.
Mm,
It will bring you among. And that's the piece of, I mean, I think we're in a moment where we need, and that's why with Belly, I wrote this book. There's a sort of an arc of pretty serious theory that runs through it, on what is agency and what does it mean to do a thing, right? What is doing a thing? Do you play guitar to become a rock star because you want to, like, what are you doing? So you can see why I felt like this was the kind of core question of what is it to make or do. And yet, in order to get in there, I had to go in through all these different angles of stories, of parenting, of being a child, of being a cook, of being, and keep them as intimate as possible.
mm,
Right? Let's keep this close because that's where the juice is.
yes.
This is not full of allegories that are just stories about some, some character. That's me. It's my blood and bone unzipped and offered.
Yes.
So I'm going to read you a piece called Matrix, okay?
Awesome.
You're going to like this one, Wes.
Cool.
So I dedicated this book to my mom. And my mother and I did not have an easy relationship. And she was born in 1929 in Kentucky, and I don't even know how she did what she did. She ended up married to Gregory Bateson. She was one of the first people in the United States to try LSD in her Columbia psych program. She was at the core of every cultural revolution from 1929 to 2026. And she wasn't a great mom. She was an adventurer. She was fighting for another thing.
Mm,
And there's a piece in the book called The Backwards Wish. And it's about a moment when we sat down together after having the same fight for 57 years. And because, you do. And the fight was always something like this. Nora, you're not grateful for anything. Mom, you haven't been there for me. And she was a family therapist. Okay. So the hypocrisy was fantastic. and, and, and we went around and around. And it's quite painful. I mean, this was like the big ouch that we could never sort this out. But I wanted to get through it. I did not want her to die and for me to keep resenting her, because I didn't want to have that resentment poison me when it could no longer find conversation. It would be a monologue in my head or in my heart. So we're sitting down one evening, and she liked to have a scotch, and we had a scotch, and we started in on our fight. Same. I looked over, and there she was, like 95 years old, frail, feet swollen. And I just thought, what are you doing, Nora? What are you doing here? This is ridiculous. And I turned to her, I said, Mom, I can't do this anymore. We are not going to change the past. It's not going to happen. And we don't have any time left. And I don't need to change the past. I don't need for you to apologize. I don't need, what I want to know is, what did you learn? If you could wish backwards, what do you wish we had done? And if you could tell me what you wish we had done, even though we're not going to do it, at least I can carry that. And she, being a very good family therapist, reversed the damn question on me and said, well, what would you wish, Nora? And so I told her, I said, I would wish that we could, like after Gregory died, that we could have just had a house together, and I could have gone to high school, and you could have helped me with my homework, and we could have had dinner, and we could have taken vacations together. And I didn't want to chase gurus, and I didn't want to run around the world doing all this crazy stuff. And she looked at me, and her jaw kind of dropped and her head turned sideways. She said, really? That's what you wanted? And I was like, yeah, Mom, I just wanted a home. And she was like, I spent my entire life trying to free you from that.
Mm.
I wanted to give you every possible witnessing of what it is to live in a way that doesn't look like that, so that you could do what you needed to do. Oh my God. So
And whose home was, it seems like within her was
right.
this desire to not replicate and create something that within you were craving.
She was trying to break a cycle. I was trying to, I don't know what I was trying to do. I was just trying to be a kid.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I'm going to read you this piece, and then we're probably coming up to the end of this. This one is not as short as the last one.
Okay.
Okay. It's a whopping 3 pages.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's called Matrix. It starts with an opening of a poem that was written by a Swedish poet in her teens. And she was one of Sweden's first outwardly spoken gay poets. Her last name is Boy. She says, yes, of course it hurts when buds are breaking. Why else would the springtime falter? Why would our ardent longing bind itself in frozen, bitter pallor? After all, the bud was covered all the winter. What new thing is it that bursts and wears? Yes, of course it hurts when buds are breaking. Hurts for that which grows and that which bars. And then it's a letter to my mom. Dear Mama, you're gone now, but I need to talk to you. There are some things I never said, questions I forgot to ask, and I wish to sit in silence with you. I'm trying to set you free, set your mother free, set your father free, set their parents free, set my grandchildren free one day. We have to find our way out of these habits of hurting each other. We have to find our way out of the expectations of individuated success and failure. We have to learn together how to be in a world we do not yet have access to. Mama, we have to break the matrix. I am of you, descended through your body, your habits, your bad relations with your father, your wild spirit, your ferocity. And as your daughter in a time of paradox, I say again, Mama, we have to break the matrix. The word means womb in Latin. It came to be used to refer to a pregnant animal. It means mother. The film by the Wachowski sisters brought it to mean the source of a simulated reality. In our mother-daughter, mother-granddaughter bonds, a river current of continuity meets each new generation and pulls us into habits too deep to see, habits formed along the way, habits that kept us alive, perhaps, but at the expense of life. Habits of devitalizing, insidious habits of isolation. Every generation has contributed to the simulation. It's a very rich story. I cannot repeat the program. The task of being alive now is to find a snag in the illusion and tear it open, reveal the breath and water of being, of life. Matrix also means table, board, index, fascia, chart. It refers to a laid out array of source materials. Oh, I see it now. The mother, the table, the fascia, it's all coming together. The tissues of our being are pulled taut between the wombs of ancient times and the tables of today. I'm not calling you wrong. I'm not disavowing your beauty. I'm not throwing away your gifts. I'm not mocking your wisdom. I'm saying, Mama, we have to break the matrix. Forward and backward in our intergenerational stories, this thing we bring to each day. Each new generation must show learning. I'm saying I cannot be in the relay race to deliver my ancestors' double binds and scarred hearts to the children who need to have free hands to do the work of a new orientation. I cannot tend the hiding places or the protective shields that are distanced from life and death and love. Now we tend the infection. You're gone, but not gone. I still feel you speaking through my hands, see your imprints in my home. I am your embassy now, and the rules of our conversation have changed. As such, I have to hold this carefully, knowing you have built the castle of your familiar with your blood and tears and those of your ancestors, but now we're going to break the matrix. The river turns when wolves rearrange its banks. The deep waters pull into other gravity, the table and the womb, the source and the simulation. It must be painful to be born, and I know it's painful to give birth. It must be hard to crack out of an egg. As I held you in your moment of death, I saw that too was not easy. Mama, we have to do this together across time and dimension, on every table, in our wombs, in the index of our being, all the way to the source. We break the matrix of your to reveal the matrix of what matters. It begins with you and me, Mama, at the table. Mama, we have to break the matrix.
Nora, so beautiful.
So I thought that one would resonate for you.
I can't even, I could spend another hour with you telling you why, specifically in so many ways. My mother, master's in behavioral analysis, ran an organization working with abused and neglected children for years. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, 95 right now, EDD in psychology, a seeker, a beautiful soul on her journey, and my mother and her mother having a very parallel process as to what you described. So I'm grateful to have this and your work and share with them and let them kind of absorb and hear and see. But we have to break the matrix, and I think it's so poignant and so beautiful. Nora, I could I was going to say kidnap you, but that's probably not the right word. But I could keep you on here, and I hope that we can do this again. But the main thing is, can you please let people know all of the upcoming events? I know you have the book launch for Belly is coming up, and then also directing them to the website. I'm going to put links to everything, but great. If you can kind of give a lay of the land of the upcomings and where people can go to kind of connect and learn more.
Great. So there's a 8-day training coming up in the States, in Portland, Oregon, and the training's on the website. So it's in September, and those are so beautiful. Like that's what you did, and it's a journey, and
life changing.
So that's the one in the U.S. this year. And then there's another one in Finland in August. So those are the two big training sessions. I think I'm going to be doing a 3-day session in Brazil, and also in September. But then Belly is launching. And the fantastic coincidence is that in this intergenerational work, really, this wasn't planned. Like, it gives me the goosebumps to even tell you, but somehow it happened that I had a phone call with this colleague of mine and dear friend, Philip Gadamy, who's the president of the Bateson Idea Group that works with all the archives of my father's work. And it was just before Christmas. And I was like, Philip, I think my book is done. And he said, mine's done too. And I was like, wait, what? What book? And, and so Philip had been transcribing the entire course that my father taught in 1976 on an ecology of mind. And so my dad has a new book coming out on the same day that mine's coming in, which, how do you even do that? So we have our dual book launches going. And there's one in London, July 19th at Rich Mix. And funnily enough, that's on the same day as the final for the World Cup, which somehow didn't register for me.
I didn't
So,
know either.
yeah. Anyway, it ends before the World Cup starts, so we're going to be all right. And then there's another launch in Portland during the training, but it'll be a public event. So, and both Philip and I will be there reading, and we have clips of my dad's voice talking in the lectures, and it's going to be great. And then there's another one in New York City, October 7th, and another one in Copenhagen. I think that one is actually on September 28th. So those are the book launches as scheduled for now. I'm pretty sure there'll be more events coming up. And what else?
I was gonna ask you any final. I just want to thank you. I want to take a second and just say, Nora, the impact that you've been able to have on my thinking and being in the world has just been profound and awesome. And so I'm deeply grateful for you and you carrying on the lineage of work and how you do it, and with such integrity, I think is the main piece, with such authenticity, honesty, integrity, and sheer burning healthy desire for amonging. And so thank you for coming on today. Any final things you want to say? Leave, no pressure.
You want one more poem?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. I gotta find it though. Page 9. This is a great thing to end on. It's called Go Home.
Cool.
Go home. The morning's clinking of dishes wakes the ghost of yesterday. Tiny threads of history wrapping around the arc of the day. The traditions of tea, coffee, and breakfast in their detail hold the whole story of why it's so hard to stop the wars and horrors. No point in making big graphs, no point in huge committees. These big programs only enhanced the disaster. Go home. Touch the ghosts and find them in hiding under your sleeve and in your cupboards. They're in the kitchen, feeding you daily doses of the past, comforting familiar ideas of life where yesterday and the day before and tomorrow are all alike. Whispering away the shake of shifting paths and illusions of practicality and reason. They say, this is how it is. No, it's not. A visitor came. When asked what he would like for breakfast, he said, nothing special, just cornflakes and chocolate milk. Another visitor came. When asked what he would like for breakfast, he said, nothing special, just buckwheat and pork. And after a while, all the visitors' breakfasts began to reveal that each of us is living in a universe of our own, infected perhaps by culture and built-in experience and language. Which one is the real one? Which one is right? These are the trapping questions. Humility at breakfast. Unfamiliar microthreads of possibility spread thinly over toast. A sip of warmed confusion, scrambled know-how with a side of fried habits. Go home to where the ghosts make breakfast.
Wow.
So, Belly.
Nora, I cannot wait for the book release, and yeah, I'm speechless. Is and this has been such an honor. And just for anybody that's listening out there, I dig Nora Bateson so much that it is 5:30 a.m. and I woke up at 4:30 a.m. to rock this because you were in Ireland right now, but am beyond excited. I couldn't wait to wake up. And you can't get my ass up at 3 a.m., but if I know I'm talking to Nora Bateson, I was like, done deal. So Nora, thank you. I'm putting links to everything. Thank you for coming on Conversations with Dr. West. Very grateful.
Thank you, Wes. See you soon, and it's been a real honor.
Awesome.
Thank you.